This
started.
conference will now be recorded.
David. All right. Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is our third Villa neighborhood meeting today. We are visiting with High Mesa. We hope that you have taken the time to sign in the back. If you are not a High Mesa Villa owner and you are electing to sit in here, you do not have the opportunity during this meeting to make comments. You need to save your comments for the Villa neighborhood that you reside in. A couple housekeeping things before we get started. Obviously signing in. If you're going to record this meeting, please announce that to us in advance. We will have a time period for you, and the majority of the time period will be for you to provide feedback to the board of directors and also ask any questions. We're going to hold that till the end. We're going to have a brief presentation, which should last, say, about 15 minutes. We ask that once the comment periods start, that you respect your fellow SCCA Villa owner, allow them to speak when they have the microphone, and we will get to you. There are a lot more Villa owners in this particular meeting than we've had in other meetings, and we want to make sure that we get through. Every single resident has a chance to speak. So we don't want any individual Villa owner monopolizing the microphone. So we will control that, okay? And then again, we're all going to be treating each other in a respectful manner. The things that are in the back that we hope that you had a chance to pick up are the spreadsheet with the leveled bids for High Mesa. Those are also online. We also have some paperwork in the back related to a timeline for the Villa owners that dates back to 2011. We have some Villa Advisory Group guidelines and a neighborhood representative volunteer application. These Villa Advisory guidelines are something that we expect the board to approve at their October 27th board meeting, and you can take the time to read them later, but basically it spells out if you want to become a Villa rep, what you need to do and to complete the forms, and we expect to have a meeting in December to elect Villa reps, okay? I will tell you, your Villa rep, China Frazier, I can see her online. She is here, and we acknowledge the other owners that are online. And if you have a question, when we get to the question and answer period, you can kind of raise your hand in the chat room and we'll make sure that we get to you. What I want to do right now is have everybody introduce themselves that's up here, and we'll acknowledge the board members that are here. So I already introduced China. She's the Villa rep for the neighborhood, and you are?
Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Gaudet, the Chief Financial Officer here.
And I'm Sandy Seddon, the COO for Sun City Anthem.
Hi, I'm Wendy Linnell. I'm the board liaison to the villas.
Barry.
I was watching the screen. I'm Barry Rumson. I'm the backup.
My name is Larry Fawcett. I'm the Facilities and Landscape Manager here at SCA.
Hi, I'm Sean Evans. I'm the Facilities Director for Sun City Anthem.
So all 6 of the board members are here today. These are the 2 that are liaisons to the Villa neighborhoods. We have President Anderson in the back, and then we have Dave Meredith, board member, Paul Pearlston, board member, and Greg Swenson, board member. And what I want to do right now is to turn the meeting over to Teresa, just to kind of refresh your memory. We've had a couple meetings this summer regarding landscape, xeriscape, turf removal requirements, and we actually went out to bid for xeriscape and smart water landscape and turf removal. Those bids were opened at a special meeting earlier at the end of September, I believe. Those bids came back, and we had a chance to have Teresa and Sean and Larry go through them and level them, and Teresa's going to speak to that now. Wait, one more thing. I'm sorry, Teresa. Just for clarity, because at our first meeting, there was some confusion. These meetings are for Villa neighborhood owners. Those are homes that are attached. If you are a single family homeowner within High Mesa, this doesn't apply to you. We had one poor resident sit through the first meeting, was a single family homeowner and didn't understand. So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, so as Sandy said, we're going over the Villa neighborhood turf removal and smart water landscape renovation project. So it's a combination of everything. And this is for High Mesa. So as Sandy said, we sent out the bids. We asked 11 contractors to come back and quote on the project, but we didn't receive more than 50% of the contractors because they already have enough work to keep them busy and weren't even interested in quoting. We did receive 5 contractors back. And what we've done in today's presentation is just narrowed it down to the 2 contractors that really are in the sweet spot for using. One was significantly lower, like 50% lower than everybody else, but they didn't provide detailed information for their bids. And when we went back to ask for more information, they wouldn't provide it anyway with subsequent. So we just knocked them out of one of the possible. And then one was significantly higher. And so we haven't included them either on today's presentation. And then one was just for the tree removal. So when you look at the slides, you're only going to see us looking at 2 contractors, but you can see all of the information either by getting a copy of the handout from the back table that shows the level bids, or there's copies online. So for the full level bids that I shared with you that you either have a copy of or you can get online, they show much more detail than the slide. Those level bids will show the grading, the general site work, the planting, the irrigation, the overall landscape, as well as any other charges that are coming through like dumpsters, cleanup, mobilization of equipment, so on and so forth. But for purposes of today, we're just looking at the 2 contractors that are the most appropriate bidders and then what their total bids were. So for High Mesa, it's Sun State Companies and XL Landscape. The contractor level bids came in at $514,840 and $549,814 respectively. In every project that we do here, we include a 10% contingency because if there's an unknown, we have to have the funding for it. And if you include the 10% contingency, then Sun State's a little over 566,000 and XL is just shy of 605,000. If you divide that by the 52 homes that are in the High Mesa Villa neighborhoods, the per home amount comes to $10,891 and $11,631. So we were asked to present 2 different funding options. One funding option is to collect the full assessment in 60 days, and the other option is to collect the assessment over installments of 24 months or 2 years. And one of the things that I want to point out is the board has not made a decision on anything yet, but it's not an individual homeowner. They'll make a decision that it's all going to be due and everybody has to pay, and whatever methodology they choose to go with. So for option 1, which is to pay within 60 days, the pros of collecting that money that quickly is so that we can start the project, and also that there's possible rebate money both from Southern Nevada Water Authority and from the city of Henderson. If rebates are received, they will go back into each individual villa neighborhood's reserve fund. It doesn't go to the main reserve, it goes to your reserve. Then another pro is you'll have reduced water consumption. The availability of contractors today is there are more, and we're concerned that later down the road when we're approaching the deadlines, there won't be. We can avoid future increases to perform the work. All dying and diseased trees will be removed, and we can avoid further root damage to the sidewalks. The cons are it's a lump sum payment in a short period of time versus installments over a longer period of time. And you also lose the grass and trees sooner. Option 2 is really the flip of that. The pros are that you have installment payments versus, oops. Thank you. So option 2 is the pros are you have installment payments that can be made over a longer period of time versus a lump sum that's due in a shorter period of time. And you can keep the grass and trees longer. The cons are the rebate money may not be available, and those are some pretty significant dollars. With inflation, the amount that it's going to cost down the road will most likely be higher than it is today. The trees and plants that are currently there that are diseased and dying, they're going to continue to die, and more may as well because they're not the appropriate plant life. You'll have continued root damage to the sidewalks and slabs, which will have to be borne by each of the neighborhoods to fix. There's rising water costs and the availability of the contractors. I don't know, Sandy, did you want anybody to expand on any of these?
I don't know. Larry, did you have any comments about any of this? Trees, anything? How many trees are in High Mesa, and how many are proposed to be removed, and how many would be proposed to go back in?
Currently, High Mesa has 317 trees total on the property. The quote here is to remove 287 of them. One of the reasons is you have the largest area of diseased and dying trees. Also, you have some of the area of most of the pine trees because you have, every house has a pine tree. The landscape designs will, when we get done, we will have a total of 300 trees on the property when we finish. So you'll be just a couple short of what you actually have right now. But those trees will be in the correct areas, not over your water and sewer lines, away from concrete issues, and also not next to driveways and sidewalks that we're constantly having to repair because the concrete gets lifted.
Can you speak about the species?
Yeah, right now you're mostly the species. Right now we're only limited to about 7 in the area that will be able to survive the desert type climate. Because right now your trees are existing on 75 gallons a year per square foot of water. This new landscape will be designed at 19 gallons a square foot. So those trees are going to have to go look for water and go down deep. The varieties are anywhere from a mesquite, Chilean, to a desert willow, to a vitex or a chase tree, to mountain laurel, and also desert willows, both Bubba pink and standard pink. And we do have those species around our buildings. So, and if you look at R1 just really quick, those were 24-inch boxes planted a little over 3 years ago, and they're already specimen trees. So those trees will grow rather quickly.
Larry, nobody knows what R1 is.
Oh, I'm sorry. R1 would be the fitness entrance. I'm sorry. Yeah, security, you know how that goes, but oh yeah. So R1 is the fitness entry into our building, and the trees on either side are desert willows. So.
And the only thing I want to add about tree, it says continued root damage to sidewalks and slabs, etc. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, we've had 3, maybe 4 occurrences in the villas where we've had trees that obviously are looking for water, and they've raised patio slabs, they've raised damage in a garage. And when that happens, and let's say, for example, it happened in your villa neighborhood, High Mesa, the association has to go in, they have to deal with the tree, which typically means removing the tree. They have to, I'll use a patio because I know this happened for sure at one of the villa neighborhoods. The patio had to be removed and redone. And then the cost, which could be, a fair amount of money, between $4,000 and $6,000, and those are just rough numbers, gets borne by that villa neighborhood. So in your instance, if it was a $5,000 expense, it would be passed on to all 52 homes. And so during the tree study that we had, not only did it identify trees that were diseased and dying and needed to come out, and identify trees that, as Larry discussed, were in problematic locations, planted too closely. We're already creating some issues with raised pieces of concrete and so forth. Okay, Wendy or Barry, real quick, did you guys have any comments to add at this time?
No.
No.
Okay, High Mesa, we have 1 hour and 15 minutes for you to talk to the board of directors, to provide them feedback on the options that Teresa talked about. Ask any questions that you want and let them know what you're thinking. And so Doris is here and she wants to pass that microphone around. So let's just remember the person who has the microphone, we're going to respect other people's time and we're going to let that person speak. So Doris.
And we encourage everyone, please weigh in. We want to hear you.
Hello.
And if you could just state your name.
Okay, I'm David Hartson. Question for you. A couple of questions. It looks like to me this is a complete removal, is it? You're taking all landscape out on this?
In reality, yes, in reality, no. In other words, you already have a percentage of desert plant material in there. You have some yuccas, you have desert spoons. Anything that is a desert type plant material, we will save. The other thing to know, it's not a complete tear out because the existing rock that you have will be saved. We're not going to remove that.
Okay, so the plants that are in my backyard against the wall that you guys put in a couple of years ago, you're going to take all that out?
I'm trying to remember what was planted on your backyard, but
Well, it's mature now and it's hiding the wall. So I guess, I don't know, maybe someone else here in the room knows the name of that plant.
I don't know, but if it's a desert type plant, Texas Ranger, a yucca,
I can't say.
I'd have to go look again to see. But anything that is desert related, we're going to save.
In regards to the trees, are you going to stump grind them or are you going to actually dig them out?
No, we're going to stump grind them. To dig them out would be almost the wrong way to go because some of those trees are too close to a driveway and we were trying to pop it out. Those roots would definitely pop the concrete. So every tree that we removed will be stump ground.
Okay, trying to speed it up so other people have a shot. My other question is, we've known about this for a couple of years. Why wasn't this addressed earlier? I'm curious why we couldn't have done this in bits and pieces so we don't get hit with a big bill like this. Do we have an answer?
Sure, I'll answer it. We've been looking at this problem since, 2011, I guess? Yeah. And we meaning previous boards, previous groups of Villa reps, whatever, okay? And in every case, they've said, kick the can down the road, all right? Facilities and landscaping and the facilities department have planned for a long-term goal of xeriscaping everything we can that's common, your limited common or regular. And we started, but it's a slow process because it requires money and things like that. And eventually we would have gotten to that point. Then this water crisis occurred. And then the government came in and at first said all the grass has to go. 4 days after we had a meeting with you people, Larry is the advisor for HOAs at the water board and one of their committees. Okay. Literally 4 days after we had the meeting, they came back and said, well, and we appealed to them. All right. I mean, we appealed really strongly to them for the whole thing, actually, and appealed. And Larry tried to exert his influence there and everything else. But other people started complaining too, and they eventually gave in on the back grass. The front and sides, they would not give in on. Right? Any rumors you hear that, oh no, it's, the law says you don't have to take any grass out. Forget that. They were very clear when they were here twice. Okay. The second time the guy said, well, we probably don't have to do the backs, but we strongly recommend it. All right. You're hearing other rumors. Oh, well, I talked to this guy and he said that. No, Larry's there. Okay. He knows what's going on there. None of us want to do this, by the way. There's not a single person on this board who wants to do this. All right. There's not a single person on this board who wouldn't sign a loan to you guys if the law allowed us and we tried. All right. I mean, there are all sorts of things that we tried to do here. All right.
Okay.
This is the cheapest option, period.
Before I pass the mic, I don't know how everybody else in this room is going, but I mean, $10,000 is a heavy hit to any and all of us. Removing grass, I mean, tear it out now to get that rebate. I mean, if that's the case, but I'm just making a point to ask for that kind of a sum of money in 60 days is quite an undertaking. It's not that I can't do it, but that's not the direction personally I want to go. So I'll pass the mic so everybody else has a shot.
Hello, my name is Don Boyd. My wife and I, Valerie, we both live at 2632 Peoria. I have 4 questions. I'll just go over them quickly and maybe you could answer them. If you can't remember them, I'll give them again. Can the bids be mixed? In other words, can Tree Solutions do the trees and the other contractors do the rest of the job?
Larry, you want to get that?
A couple things. When you have 2 different contractors on the same job, there might be an issue. So Tree Solutions may not stump grind the way Sun State wanted their part of their company to do. We use Tree Solution as a, how do I put it? A placebo, is that the right word? A benchmark. So we would, as management and facilities, go back to this contractor and try to make sure that the pricing from the tree company would match. So he'd have to lower his costs a little bit to help. So, but yeah, to mix and match on a job this size would be pretty rough. Everybody be pointing at each other what we're trying to do.
Because it looks like there's a substantial savings by using them for the trees.
Yeah,
Yes.
just understand, these are bids, they're not contracts.
Right,
Okay.
of course.
Contracts will be
Yes.
quite different. There'll be all sorts of clauses. You got to give us warranties, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I understand that fully. The bid validity date, how much time do we have before the bids expire?
90 days from the date we opened them up.
That's September 6th, right?
Yes.
So we're well into that 90 days right now. Matter of fact, we have less than 60 days right now to get our money in.
Correct.
So it isn't 60 days anymore. It's less than 60.
Well, we won't do that to you and we'll talk to the bidders. And if they know that we're moving forward and that's the collective decision that's made, we're pretty confident that they'll
Well,
wait a little bit, but never.
I wish you luck. What if all 52 owners do not pay the assessment on time? In other words, if you go the lump sum route, you need all the money on day one. And what if there's a delay in getting all the 52 owners to submit $10,000, say?
Well, that's why currently each of the villa neighborhoods have some funds in their reserve accounts. And the reason for not reducing the per household potential assessment is to be able to account for that. Because otherwise, if we used all the money that's currently in the reserves to reduce it and counted on everybody paying 100%, if someone didn't pay, then we would have to go back to each of the homes who are paying and say, we need more.
That's kind of what I was asking about. Yeah.
But that's why we're leaving what's in the reserves there so that there's a cushion to not have to do that. Now, if 50% of the homes don't pay, there's not enough cushion there.
Yeah, so there's some issue there. Okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to be brief. We were talking about the front versus the back lawns and the decision that seems to be made to do them both. Is that right? Or is there still the possibility of just doing the front?
There has been no vote by the board yet.
Okay,
Period.
so the numbers could change obviously if we just do the front.
Well, do understand that there are 3 categories of trees economically here. Those trees that are desert trees in good shape, not in danger of invading concrete, okay, or houses. Those trees that will die when we take grass out because all that water coming in from the grass has caused their root systems to go up to the top instead of go deep. Okay, they will die when the grass goes away. And then those trees that are dying, dead, or about to invade your property, that they were way too close.
Yeah.
That, Del Webb did you a favor.
I'm not saying that I favor one or the other. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, well,
Right.
For sure, the dead and dying got to go. That's our fiduciary responsibility.
Right.
All right. The rest will go depending on whether we do the back or we don't do the back or whatever.
So,
Okay?
so is the grass coming out no matter what? Is that what you're saying?
No,
No,
I'm saying we have not voted yet.
In the back, you mean?
in the back.
In the
Right.
back, no, right now, that's the option we're giving you, but the board has not made a decision. The six of us have not gotten together, and we want to have these meetings with you and hear your feedback and then
Okay.
go back and discuss this some more.
Right,
Yeah, that's the reason for these meetings.
right, okay.
Thank you.
Ed, do you want-
I'm sorry. Thank you.
My name is Ed Lopez. I've been here for 22 years in the same place. Do you have a plan? There's what's coming out, when we're going to start and all that.
Well, that depends on what happens at the board meeting on October 27th, when the board gets together and we decide how we're going to proceed, then all the villa owners would get a letter and explaining all the details and when the assessment would start.
So that's when our $10,000 would be due.
Theoretically, yes, sir.
What are you going to do with the $10,000? Going to sit on it?
No, it goes.
So we have to wait until you start to do whatever you're going to do?
Well, you have to give them a down payment. Is that what you mean? The landscaper will require a deposit to start the job. It's paid in.
So again, your question was, are there a set of plans and what's coming out and what's not coming out? Yes, there's conceptual drawings that are done for each villa. So that each villa has a different flavor and taste in their landscaping. The tree removals were done from a tree survey, so we know exactly what tree, where it's at, what has to become. The shrubbery around has already been dictated what'll stay in what. So those are some of the details you didn't see because that went on in the RFP. So it was a large document that went out to the contractors to bid off of. So we do have a plan.
He's asking if the pine trees are going to stay or go. The pine trees are going.
Any other questions in this aisle?
As are the fruited trees that are dropping fruit all over the place.
Mine will hopefully be quick. We'll go to the, sorry? My name, I don't have a name, doesn't matter. Just go back to the grass one more moment. I understand the back and the front and the decisions that still have to be made, but when the bid packages came in, do the bids that we're looking at here include the removal of all of it as the worst case scenario?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Hey, sir.
No, I have a question, just that McDonald Ranch and Summerlin all did it in a different way. They did with the grass removal, they got the refund, and then they did trees and the other things. Why can't we consider that program?
What we can consider two of those classes of trees I talked about. The dead and dying, wherever they are on this property, whether they're in your area or anywhere in the general common area, we remove when they are dead and dying. All right?
Yeah, I don't have a question on the dead and dying.
Asking about the rebate. Let me
I'm talking about
speak
the
to that.
rebate.
I don't know what.
If we did the grass, then we got the rebate, then you use those funds to do, so that you could reduce the 10,000 or 11,000.
Meaning that when,
whichever
okay,
we do.
the rebate takes, when the job is completely done, whatever that job
Yes.
is going to be, let's
Yep.
just for the sake of this discussion, remove the grass in the front and the sides.
Yes.
Then if the rebate is available and we get in the queue and we sign up for it, they would have to come out and it would take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to see the rebate. What you're asking is, would we use that rebate to then remove trees?
Yes,
Anything is.
that would reduce the initial out-of-pocket.
But we
JC,
can't, but
when JC
here's
gave
the
us-
thing, sir, we don't know if we're going to get the rebate. The rebates are not guaranteed.
JC said he cuts a check every Thursday and he'll be out every week. He's here in the local. He would come as soon as Larry would tell him it's done. He would be here within a week. He said that at this meeting.
But we have to get in the queue, and right now, staff has been diligently working with the city to help them to understand that the villa neighborhoods are unique. But because each association is only allowed to have 2 projects in the queue at a time, and the main association has some, and then each villa would be one. So we're trying to get them to acknowledge and accept that each neighborhood is one, and then you would get a rebate, but we can't promise that.
Yeah.
No, but then we'll know if we have the funds. If we didn't get them, then we can add those additional later.
Yeah,
So,
excuse me, there's one other point. Let's be clear about it, all right? If we have to remove dead and dying trees in the back, all right, they have to get at it with equipment.
Mhm.
If we build the sides and the fronts, some of them are going to get damaged in that process.
Okay.
And we'll have to do them again, and that will cost you more money. If we do it all at once, they will do, even if we do the fronts, just the front and sides, and just the dead tree removals and so forth, we would get the trees out and then we would do the landscaping, because it doesn't make sense otherwise. All right? For you to pay twice for something you really only wanted to pay once for. Okay?
We don't want to overstate it. I mean, there would be minor damage, everything to major damage, depending on where the dead and dying tree would have to be removed, you know, to get there from the
Oh,
front.
yeah, I can understand
So,
that.
okay.
Yeah. Somebody else?
Yep, thanks.
Hi, Gary Broadus over at Harrisburg. We were here when the bids were opened, substantially lower than what we're seeing above. And as far as having a plan, the gentleman here made a good point. Are we going to see a plan? And are we going to see the actual bids dollar for dollar on how you came up with these numbers up there, instead of you telling us, here's the number, 10,000 or 11,000? We'd like to see how you arrived at those numbers on an Excel spreadsheet so we can compare our notes.
So the Excel spreadsheet, the detail is online, and it's also in the back of the room, so you could see all the components. And in terms of the bids that were open, we had to go back to the contractors, because just to give you an example, and I'm just going to make a number up. Let's say there's 287 trees in your area that needed to be removed and replaced. Well, one contractor might have had 281, another one might have had 250, and another one might have had a different number. So we went back to them and said, you know, we need to clarify this. Some contractors used, I'm going to say the wrong plant size, but say they used 1 gallon plants instead of 5 gallon plants, or used 3. And because there was a misunderstanding that we asked them to quote it if we did 1 plant size, and if we were trying to save money to do a different plant size, and one put the lower thing in their quote and the other one put the higher. And so that's why we take the time to level the bids, so that we know we're comparing apples with apples.
Oh, I understand, ma'am. I'm talking about coming directly from the contractor to balance out with the Excel spreadsheet. You're just giving us the numbers with your conversation with them.
No, we actually got new paperwork from them to support those numbers. So I'm sure we can make those available.
Okay, here's another thing too. I know this is supposed to be a turf removal law that Sisolak signed. And, you know, speaking of Governor Sisolak, he signed an executive order in 2019, the climate change bill, you know, and we hear it all the time about climate change, that it poses a serious threat to Nevada's natural resources, and that we're supposed to do our part to conserve energy. Well, if the trees go, our electricity bills are going to go up 25 to 30% in the heat of summer. And then, you know, I don't think people are going to be happy about that. We're not seeing a financial benefit with this project by going beyond the front toupee grass we have in our front yard. You go to that backyard, you've got all kinds of birds and wildlife back there. We even have owls back there. And Apparently it's a protected species in Nevada, the owl is. What's the plan for that? What's the environmental study on the climate change that we're going to heat up the house on the outside here? Where's the outcry from Cortez and Titus and the governor? It goes completely against what they're jamming down our throats, in every ad we see on TV. And so has anybody done an environmental study or has looked at those facts and any concern to climate change? Or do we just hear crickets?
Well, in order to
Not
get,
from you, but I mean from our leaders that are running this state.
there has to be a canopy. That's part of getting the rebate. That's number one. Number two, the land, you are going to get trees that will give you a canopy. And so there is a, Larry, can you speak more to this, please?
The tree species that we'll be planting, they'll come in a 24-inch box. So in 3 to 6 years, they'll be near maturity, and about 10 will be full. It's no different than these trees that you have right now were planted 22 years ago. And they're, California-based type plant material, so they have these gigantic canopies. During our tree survey and tree removal process, we try to be very careful on what I call the west-east exposures of your homes to make sure that we try to save everything to help with that. Also, the SNWA has requirements on canopy and coverage. So if I've got 10,000 square foot of grass, I have to have a 50% coverage, either in trees or in shrubs. We've elected to try to put more trees back in than we actually, in this case, you're a few short. The other bills came out a little higher on that side to give you that coverage in the future.
Yes, I'm Roger Shenyang. The question is, these trees that are diseased, okay, now there's what, a couple of hundred in our area?
Well, your association or your villa is kind of unusual because you're the one with the most pine trees. And it seems like the pine trees were the biggest things that everybody wanted gone. They also were the most destructive trees of the ones you have. Now, I realize there are some pines that are in High Mesa. I think, remember correctly, there are some that are in some of the rock areas that are in the back areas. And we will be saving those trees because they grew up in the desert. They didn't grow up in the lawn areas. So, and I'll put it this way really quick. On the east lawn, we were slated to remove 62 trees.
Larry, I hate to interrupt you, but that's not my question.
Well,
my question is the diseased trees that we have.
Yes.
Why did we wait this long? They didn't disease overnight here. I'm sure there's years of disease going on.
Well, I can only say to what I've been here for 4 years. The trees that you have there are raywood ashes, modesto ashes, and they are in what the disease called ash decline or sooty canker. There's no cure for that. Even if they had found it 5 years ago, there's nothing you can do to prevent that disease.
Yeah, but at this point, we're paying for something that died 5 years ago.
Well, it's in the slow process of dying. I'm not saying,
the whole process. Apparently, they should have been. You got something wrong with your body, you go see the doctor, and if the finger's disease, you're going to get it cut off.
That's why a couple of years ago we did a complete tree survey of every tree that was in the villas. We also have completed a complete tree survey for the 3,000 trees we have in our common areas that aren't even included in this project. So we now know what we have before we didn't.
Yeah, it don't matter what I ask, we're going to pay for it. My other question is on this vote here, opening up the bids. If we bid for, let's say, excuse me, the lowest one, and some other communities bid for the highest one, do we have to pay the highest one, whoever majority votes? In other words, you're going to have at least 4 contractors in here.
No, each of your villa neighborhoods was bid separately, so each villa neighborhood has a different cost associated with it.
So in other words, if we vote for one and somebody votes for somebody else, we got 2.
No, it's the board's vote.
Okay, well, the
board will, so somebody asked earlier if it made sense to have 2 contractors, 2 doing one neighborhood and 2 doing another neighborhood, or doing one contractor and having the tree company do the trees. Larry, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, but again, with the trees, Larry, at one point you had talked about selling the wood. Is that still in process, or are we biting the bullet on that?
No, it's still in process. One of the problems we have with the wood companies that are here in Vegas, and we've been working with them on, is that they want dried wood. So when this wood is cut, I've got to find a place to dry it So then they will buy it from us.
Well, there's enough desert.
Well, yeah, there's enough desert. But so, yes, we're
Yeah.
negotiating with two companies. One of them is off of Rancho down where I live at.
Mhm.
They're one of the biggest wood companies. So, once again, we're still working on that issue.
Okay.
Sir, anything else, sir? We're going to go row by row. Sir?
Jerry Peterson, Harrisburg. Two questions. First of all, the business about the back grass, I didn't think it was a board decision. I thought that all grass had to be removed that is non-decorative. That's not,
What happened was initially we were told, and Larry's all the HOAs in Nevada representative to the water district. Okay. They all wanted him. All right. We were told all the grass for this class of housing that's done by class of housing, and you're not the same class as our single families. That's unfortunate. All right. What happened is we had a meeting with on June something 1st here with anybody who wanted to come and a water district guy, and it was all the grass. 4 days later, the water district had heard from so many people that this was such a bad idea to take back grass that they then exempted your class, because mostly it was seniors in these types of houses in that class. Okay. And they said the back grass can stay. So the mixed message you've gotten was, and then the next time they came out, they reiterated you could keep the back grass, but we strongly advise against it. Now, you could either take that as, well, they're just trying to save a few more gallons, or you could take it as they have an intention eventually to tell us we have to take the back grass. All right. We think it may be due to the election coming up, but who knows what the reason is. Okay. But one of the decisions that could be made, and I'm not saying we're going to make that decision, but one of the optional decisions here is, all right, we'll do the fronts, and maybe the economy might go down and you can reasonably and affordably do the backs, even though we will have to destroy some of the fronts to get the back in most of the villas. Okay, different amounts depending on the villa. That will be figured into the cost per villa. Or you can just say, well, let's not take the risk. Let's get it now because the prices, we know what they are. And the competition for contractors, we have half of the contractors bid, and some of them were actually legitimate bids. All right. We don't know what it'll be 4 or 5 years from now. It could well be that there aren't any contractors available. Half of our ones right now were not available that we normally use. So, because they're already booked for 2 years out.
okay, thank you. My second question, or my input would say, is you've got two options right now on paying all at once or divvy it up 24 months. Obviously, you need money up front right now, okay? So would you consider, half down this year and half down next year? That would cover a lot of the cost initially that you need up front, and hopefully everybody's going to pay. But that would kind of make it a little bit easier on us, for one fell check writing.
Hey, Elaine, we'll be getting to it, don't worry. I know, I'll take that. Let's Teresa answer the question.
Okay, I want to make sure that I heard the question, taking some down now and then some paid over time. The challenge with that is, right, and it's the same thing for the pros and cons that we gave of option 1 or option 2, is we can't enter into the contract with the contractors until we have the funds to pay for it. And so the bids that we've received are only good for 90 days, and we're already 30 days into that. And with the way inflation is right now, the prices that we have won't hold. They've already told us that they can give us a little wiggle room for a short amount of time on their labor costs because they know they can hold those. They said, but the plant costs and the pricing that they have to pay where their prices are increasing, they can't hold. So the longer we go to spread this out or take payments other than in the 60 days, the numbers that we've quoted may have to change and we may have to come back and ask for more money.
That was what I was going to add. Yes, we could do we possibly could do what you're suggesting, but then we'd have to come back and get bids again.
What I'm suggesting, and maybe I should put it in paper and give it to you, is that if it's going to be 10 grand, just for the sake of talking, if we pay $5,000 today, okay, and $5,000 in February, whatever, okay, at least 5,000 times 50 is $250,000 plus our reserve. That would cover the entire cost, if I understand that correctly. And then in February, I wouldn't say all year, I'm saying 2 payments, okay, not multiple payments, 2 payments, first quarter, last quarter, first quarter. And that way, then we could split the money a little bit better for $10,000. And that's what I'm saying, just 2 payments, first quarter, last quarter. And that way you'd have enough money to make the bid. You would have the enough money to pay for it. So you'd lock in the contractor and then just pick it up later. It would replenish the reserve and it would replenish everything else. I'm just asking you to look at it as an option.
No, so the challenge with that, right, is there isn't enough money in your reserves to cover that extra 5,000 in terms of timing of the payment. And if some homeowners don't pay,
sure,
then we've entered into a contract, but we don't have the funds to fulfill that contract. And then we'd have to go back to all of the homeowners who did pay to ask for more money.
Okay,
And that we want to avoid.
Last question, how much money do we have in our reserve?
I don't want to misquote. We're on High Mesa. I'll look it up and tell you.
So that's going to take a minute. And while we're waiting, there's just a comment online. Will you be choosing the most cost-effective way to do this project? So board members, do you want to answer that question?
Define cost-effective.
I was just going to say that the most cost-effective way is to do it now when we know the cost. But there's also the thought that if we wait, the price could go down. The economy could change. All of a sudden, Lake Mead could fill with water. The drought could be over, you know. So what I would say about that is the most cost-effective way right now is what we know. But that doesn't mean that down the road, it also couldn't be even more cost-effective. It could be less money if certain factors happen in the economy and the supply and demand is not what we are projecting at the moment. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, there's a comment up there that says, will that be the choice? I just want to clarify, the villa owners don't have a choice. The board are the individuals that make that decision, the SCA board of directors. But that's part of the reason we're sitting here today having these 4 individual villa neighborhood meetings, is to hear feedback from the residents. And again, the board hasn't made any decisions at this point.
Yeah, we wanted to get as much individual feedback from everybody so we could hear more than just a few voices. All right, because it's the tendency, and having been on the board for a year and a half, I've seen this tendency. The people opposed to something show up at the meetings, and typically the people in favor of things don't. And you get the impression that everybody's opposed, but then, you find out eventually that that wasn't the case in many cases. We don't know what the case is here. We want to hear from you. Please speak.
So if I can answer your question, you asked how much money was in your reserves, round numbers, $130,000 to $140,000.
Bob Folds, and Bob and Sue Folds. I have a question again I want to revisit the rebate again. We have several entities here involved in the state. The governor's speaking about the rebate, the city of Henderson. I'm wondering about the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
What is the source of these rebates?
So the rebates come from two locations, the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and they're funded by the government, the state, right? And then we have the city of Henderson that has funding available. Each of it is $1.50 per square foot up to a certain limit, and you have to qualify for that. The issue is specifically with the city of Henderson, that you are not viewed, you are the same entity as Sun City Anthem, and the city of Henderson only allows 2 projects in the queue at a time, whereas Southern Nevada Water Authority doesn't care how many projects you have in the queue. So we're fairly confident with the Southern Nevada Water Authority that $1.50 per square foot is available for all 4 villa neighborhoods. But Larry and I have gone to the city council and we've gone to the senior staff at the city of Henderson to ask them to consider all 4 villa neighborhood projects as separate individual projects and understand the dilemma that you are part of SCA and shouldn't be penalized because you have for all intents and purposes, you have limited common area in our sub association and pay additional fees. And so therefore you should be eligible for that. They took us seriously. In fact, they had a meeting, I believe yesterday, or the meeting's tomorrow, senior staff and the muckety mucks to come to some kind of conclusion with that. And again, until you apply and until a project's finished and until they come out and inspect, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the rebate, but we're moving every which way to ensure that we can get the maximum rebate for each of the 4 villa neighborhoods.
And they're trying to get more money on the SNWA side from the state, because right now there's $50 million in the fund. And if everybody who has the non-essential grass, or everybody who could apply for a rebate applies, that's $600 million. So that's why they're asking for more money. So we can't even 100% count on SNWA in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm hoping we can, but there's no guarantee that even that money will be there.
Which is why we want to do it sooner. It's a lot of money.
I'm Sue Foles, the other half, and we were lucky. We inherited one of the villas. We're at 2653. We're on a corner lot. We have a postage stamp of grass in the front. Do we get any kind of input as far as whether we get to keep the back or not? It does affect the value of our property. I believe it does. And I have a renter and they love that back, that piece of grass. They have no problem with the front going. Not that they have any say, I'm just giving you input. So would that be considered? Could we vote on that? Not that it would make any difference, but maybe it would make us feel better. Yeah, so we do have a lot of money in this property.
So I'm hearing, I was going to say, Sue, I'm hearing what you're saying, and so are the board members and managements and sitting in here. But as you can imagine, the same question becomes, do I get to decide the type of tree? Do I get to decide the exact plants? No, but you can understand the whole magnitude of that. And so I don't know if I hear what you're requesting, but I can't tell you at this point that you would get a say so in that. But
I understand. Yeah. I'm just sharing.
We do hear you, and you're not the
feelings.
You're not the first person to say. I mean, we've had homeowners say, I play football with my grandchildren out there, and please don't take it away. We love that grass, and so on and so forth. And right now, it's not mandated to take it away.
Right.
My concern when they say, what's the most effective thing to do? My concern is that it will be mandated at some point, but maybe it won't.
You know what?
So the board has to discuss this in more detail.
Right.
We're not going to ask for a vote.
We're not young.
But we're hearing you.
We're not young here. Any one of us could die the next day. And so, I mean, no shade, that's for sure. And I'm not worried about the trees. I have walked the property with Larry, and I want that pine tree gone too, and a couple of other things. But I think we're pretty good in the back, except for that, what is it? A fruitless mulberry. What is it, Larry? That's it.
I think was it a Bradford pear?
I don't know.
Or no, the flowering
It's
plum.
purple.
It's
It's
flowering plum.
Yeah, the flowering plum. Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't have I have no problems. I would like to know what's coming out sooner than later, so we can plan for it. I don't know what our plans would be.
So
but-
I will just tell all of the villa owners in here, I think the board's going to hear, we have one more meeting after this. They actually have a different topic of a meeting tomorrow because our new insurance rates have come in. And hopefully there's some time after that for them to meet and discuss what they've heard today and what direction they're going to give management. And you should watch for the October board meeting, the posting of that agenda, because that would give you an idea of what's on the agenda and what they're contemplating. Okay? The board of directors.
The board for the October 27th
Please
board
come
meeting.
to Elaine because she's been like since we started. Hi, Elaine.
My name is Elaine Isaacs, and I maybe this question was answered previously. Why is it just the villas that have to have the trees and the grass removed? The homeowners also have trees and grass. They're using the same water.
Great question. It's your housing.
Pardon me?
You're not considered, the villa housing is not considered single family homes. It's under that category. It's a little confusing. It's under that category, but it's down the list from single family homes. And because it's what we call limited common element, you don't actually own that grass. Whereas in my house, I own everything that's in the front yard. But when I moved up here to Anthem, they said no grass. So there's no grass. But there was grass does that help?
And then Elaine, you're asking about the trees?
The trees?
I have another question.
Wait, let me answer you about the trees. The trees, this new law in the Southern Nevada Water Authority, they're not requiring trees to be removed. Trees is the species, as Larry spoke, some of them are dead and dying. Some are creating hardscape issues. And so this just contemplates if the board decides to go in there and remove turf, that those trees at the same time would go because they're going to be problematic if they stay.
See, and that's been a discussion in the industry since the AB 356 was passed, requiring the removal of the non-essential grass, is they forgot to talk about the trees and how there's a relationship between the trees and the grass in terms of the trees getting enough water. So there's been a lot of discussion about how to deal with the trees. Larry's touched on some of that today. What will happen, because the tree roots are already coming up to the surface, which is why we've had problems with hardscape. We've had to replace a patio for someone. We had to repair somebody's garage, inside their garage and so on, because those roots are coming to the surface and pushing up the hardscape.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
another question.
I had two beautiful trees in the back when I moved in. And they told me they had to be removed because my grass was always mud or dead. And Larry can vouch for this. I have complained about the grass. I'm here 19 years. So I've probably complained for 18 years. Why didn't any of the boards take any of this into consideration?
And the answer to that is we really
Pardon
wish,
me?
the answer to that is we really, really wish they had not kicked the
So
can
do I.
down the road.
Nobody,
Yeah,
the board
this
that
board is not kicking cans.
the board that took over from Pulte Del Webb didn't even consider the reserves for the roofs. All we are paying extra for is the horrible landscaping, about $200 a year for trash, and painting this stucco probably once every 10 years.
We understand that, and we're not here to bash the villa owners or the previous boards who collectively decided, if just like we're asking you what your opinions are, and then the board decides. There were times, if there had even been small increases over the years, you might have had enough money in your reserves today to pay for this without a reserve assessment, or at least get mighty, mighty close. So a reserve assessment would be much smaller. You're absolutely right, but we can't go back now. All we can do is tell you what has existed for the past 10 or 11 years. And now because of the law, that's an ingredient we hadn't really forecast, but we have to deal with it now. You're right.
Hello, my name is Li Mingxi. I live on Harrisburg Avenue. Anyway, I have one probably simple question. For that payment option, you have the payment, one is to pay in 2 months, 60 days. Another option is to pay over 24 months. So for that option 2, is that like a mortgage payment? Do you actually add the interest on top of that? That's my question, just like.
So no, there would be no interest added on top of it, but the board still needs to discuss what approach they want to take. And then also look at, are they just going to collect the same amount, whether you pay in 60 days or whether you pay in 24 months? Because the expectation is 24 months from now, the project's going to cost more. So that determination hasn't been made, but no, there would be no interest.
Pretty much 12 months will be cost more, so basically. Because of inflation and everything else.
That's what the expectation is.
That's an expectation. It is not a fact, but it's a high expectation. And the other thing is that if it's towards the worst case scenario instead of the best case scenario, it could well be at the end of that period, we come back with a special assessment to make up the difference because it went up so much that we couldn't predict. Now, on the other hand, it may go down. You can't tell. It's a crapshoot. Welcome to Vegas.
That's what we've been saying all day. The gambling and, the gambling term, it's a crapshoot. It's a risk.
On the 10% contingency, do you get any of that back, or is that gone?
So
how does that work?
Every project that we do here, and if you look at any of the BAIs in the board books, we always include a 10% contingency because there's unknowns. I mean, when they start digging the roots up, they could hit something that we're not aware that's there. So that doesn't get paid to the contractor. Any funds that are collected via the assessments, including that 10% contingency, go into the reserve.
And then the 24 months, at the end of 24 months, we could be assessed again, correct?
Well, what's going to happen if the board selects that option is these bids are no longer good. We begin to collect money from the villa neighborhoods. And at some point prior to that 24 months ending, closer to the, like, say the 20th month or something, we have to be in a position to rebid the project and understand what the costs are at that time.
Hi there, my name is Jan Ferris and I'm representing Harrisburg, like all my neighbors here. Thank you all for coming. Just want to jump ahead a little bit. I understand the HOA assessments are due to go up in January. My question is, if we're going to go through all this with the irrigation and the landscaping, obviously those expenses are going to go down. Will that affect our HOA? Hopefully.
It will. It will. We had to put the budget together and put it out there. And so we just had to do it as if the project wasn't moving forward. But if the project is done, then there's a number of different ways we can either go in and reduce the assessments, for each quarter, or we could say, okay, you're going to get a holiday and you don't have to pay the fourth quarter assessment. Like, we'll take a look at where we are and what the status is. But yes, we should not need all those funds.
So the question here is back to what Jan asked. I forgot how you put it. If we are so far underfunded and then the current operating budget with all the landscape goes back into our reserve fund, we'll never be fully funded, so we'll never get anything back.
So let me explain, right? When you pay your assessments, whether it's for the main association or for the villas, right? It's made up of two pieces, operating and reserve. And so when those monies come in, those funds are separated. It goes to the operating account and the reserve account. The reserve account is for the replacement of assets. So in the case of the villas, you have the stuccos, the irrigation, the trees, the landscaping, all of that. And there's probably some other components that I missed, right? And then you have the operating budget. So two different budgets. For the reserves, right? Because that's really what we're talking about here, a reserve assessment. If we have collected more money than is needed for the reserves, and if we get rebates and those go in, we can look at it as an association after we do the 2023 reserve study update, when they say on a go-forward basis, this is how much money you need to have in there. If we find that you have more money in there because we were able to get the rebates, we didn't use the contingency fund, right? Then we have options to look at where we could either physically return a check back to each homeowner, or we can give you a holiday on, future reserve assessments. So we're looking at all things and taking them into consideration. And again, what our challenge is that we have to have the money up front to enter into the contracts to do the work. It would be nice if we didn't have to. We've looked at the main association. Could the main association loan the neighborhoods the money so that they could collect it and wait for the reserves? But we can't. And so legally, we are not allowed to commingle the money. They're separate funds, separate entities for accounting purposes. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no, but my
ahead.
past experience on being on boards, unless your reserve is funded 100%, whether you're talking about the reserve or the operating budget, makes not any difference. There is no refund.
Well, but here's the challenge here with the villa neighborhoods. The majority of your reserve is made up of the irrigation, the plants, the trees. Yes, there's some stuff for stucco and other things, but that's the majority of it. And the way the reserve works is you're funding the costs over 30 years, right? So if you have something brand new today, and I'll just make up any number, right? Let's say it costs $300,000. Then what the reserve does is it collects, did I do the math right, 10,000 a year for each of the 30 years so that when the money's needed, it's there. So if you've just replaced everything and it's brand new, and it use my example of the 300,000, at the end of year one, you only need 10,000. So if you have more than that 10,000, then it's appropriately funded.
Means there could be an assessment reduction or a holiday in a quarter or maybe 2 quarters. I've seen that.
Right, you don't
that
have to be
happen.
fully funded for the full 30 years. You have to be fully funded at that point in time.
You're not even close to fully funded for anything.
So are you saying 20% of the 1 year example, like 20%?
Well, if we're funded at 27% now, and granted the landscape costs and the water costs go down with the zero-scape practice, agreed, but still, if you're only funded at 27%, even if those costs go down, there's no way you're gonna be funded at 100% that anybody can get any money back. That's just simple math.
I mean, I could explain why, if you want to have a side conversation afterwards, because I think you're looking at the fully funding differently. Now the stuff is 20 years old. Once you do the project, it's all brand new. So that 30-year clock starts all over. Now you're 20, 25 years into that 30-year clock.
That's why it's important to have that reserve study that's scheduled for 20.
This is off the subject. How much are our dues going up?
She's going to have to look up individually what it is.
Pardon me?
She will look up and come back to you. We don't know that off the top, okay?
Hello. Hi, I'm Cindy Broaddus, and although it has been determined by the board and the Southern Nevada Water District that we are not in single-family homes, I would say that 99.9% of the people that purchased in this neighborhood purchased with the idea that they were buying a private single-family home that was attached at the garage for their use and their benefit. If you were to pull out all of the trees and the turf in the front yard, we get it, we understand, then we are looking for sanctuary in that backyard because we have no other place to go. And I would be remiss to say it doesn't matter, because it does. We're out there every single day having coffee on our back patio. And we're going to look at rocks now. I mean, come on, that is not what 99% of the people, and when somebody mentioned, oh, the people that are opposed are the only ones that show up, we only have 52 homes in our neighborhood, and there is a big number of people in this neighborhood that are here today or online, and that means that a good percentage of the people are opposed to this. So I get it that we're supposed to do this, but the backyard is really a little bit of an overreach, in my opinion, because it is not mandated by anyone. It is not part of the original bill or regulation that was signed by Sizzlack. That is ornamental. The backyard is not ornamental to anyone that lives here. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So just real quick, while Doris is moving that microphone, there's a comment online. If we really aren't kicking the can down the road, then I feel we should just redo all the landscaping now and move forward.
And we have heard that same comment throughout the day today, and also in comments, we've gotten, and I'm keeping them all in one big envelope. There are people who have been saying that, rip the Band-Aid off, let's just do it now while we know what the cost is, including the back. But I do hear what people are saying about the back, that you have almost an emotional connection to it because it's your grass. We get it. The board will definitely talk about this.
Yep.
I'd like to,
Just one point first before you do that. The board had nothing to do with that determination. We would have preferred you would be labeled a single family home.
That's right.
And the back would have gone away. The back originally was in the list. We fought, other people fought, and we got the back off the list. Okay?
Thank you.
okay, now I had one question, I got two. With the backyard, now we got the grass. So far in 4 meetings, things have changed. This is coming out, this is not coming out. We have so many trees coming out, now it's not so many. But I don't hear anything about the prices changing. 10,000 has been on the board every day since day one.
The first numbers you got were a couple of estimates that Larry got in February that we used in the first meeting, okay, to give you an order of magnitude, okay? And we were very careful to say it's probably wrong, really wrong, because it didn't account for the inflation that started around then, okay? The numbers you saw at the bid openings, okay, were not level. So some contractors counted things differently. Some wanted to put in smaller plants than we told them. We give them a very detailed thing. It's called an RFP. And believe me, our RFPs are brutal, okay? And we've learned to make them very precise. And the reality is that independent of that, when people come in with bids, and I worked on another big project here, the theater, okay, those bids are all over the place. And we do a thing called leveling, which is we make them equivalent to what we said in the original RFP. And we work with each of them and we get new bids. All right, you haven't seen the new bids, but we didn't have to open them. All right, what you see is the result of the new bids here. All right, so that's how that process worked.
Now, the other question I got are I don't know if it's a question or a remark. Wendy, you said a while ago that the Villa people, apparently we don't own that property, right?
It's limited common element, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, for that reason there, why are we paying all this stuff? If it's not mine, why am I paying for it?
Your documents, or the governing documents, oh, that's such a good question. That makes it very clear that the villa owners, each neighborhood pays for the upkeep and maintenance of that limited common element.
We do.
And yes, sir. That's the, I mean, this board wishes it didn't, that organizational structure didn't exist for you all. We wish it didn't, but it does. And it doesn't make sense. If you don't know about HOAs and the world of HOAs, it doesn't make sense. Well, gee, you got to pay for something you don't own? Yes. I mean, but because it's not the same way in the common area. We all commonly own or share the pool and the parking lot and all that. But in the case of the villas, and because it's just 162 of you total, and we have one villa neighborhood that's only 20 homes, think about the cost divided by only 20 homeowners. So it is frustrating. We don't love that setup for you either, but the documents are very clear that you all have to share the payment equally for the upkeep of that limited common element.
And you can thank Del Webb for producing them. We hate them.
We still love our beautiful community and Del Webb's concept that he first had in his garage in Arizona. We still love that, right?
One of the things I would just like to add and fill in for you would be that in terms of the bidding, we did get figures just for the front and back. So, I mean, front and sides. So that, we do have that information. And that's something that the board will also consider. And in terms of looking at what, we just have to do versus maybe what we'd like to do, there are different decision points. And that's what the board will be talking about.
Wait, just 1 second, please. 1 second.
Jerry Peterson, Harrisburg. In all this discussion in the RJ and removing grass, I have not heard anything said about artificial grass. Why is that not even an option? There must be a good reason for it, so.
Got it. Yeah. There's my call. Artificial grass has a life expectancy of about 15 years here in the desert. The last last cost we had to get it done was between $11 to $14 a square foot installed. So when you take a look at the cost, it's very, very expensive, especially in a commercial application or in a large area like that. So that's why it wasn't considered. And
Okay, please, microphone only. We have some.
Yeah, I've been to about 4 meetings, and every meeting I'm leaving more confused about what's the plan. I heard there's a plan over there this morning, or a few minutes ago, but I was standing in front of my house the other day, and I'm looking at about 70 feet wide, maybe 100 feet deep, and most of it's my structure. And I'm wondering, $10,000 for the amount of land or whatever work is going to be done, it seemed to be awful high to me. And I'm kind of confused about what the plan is for my lot, or this gentleman for his lot, or for their lot.
no, we do have a plan. There's architectural drawings. They're conceptual. And I think I don't know if I had too many meetings, a little, but the original architect wanted almost $50,000 to design the plans for all 4 villas. And so that's a huge cost. So after talking to the board and management, we went with a conceptual drawing. So it was a total of $5,000 to get 4 plans done that shows each one of the villas in groups of 4 homes with a plan, with the trees and with the plant material on it. And we will just leapfrog every 4 homes. But each villa will have a different flavor. So your landscaping at High Mesa will be a little differently than the ones at Mountain View or the other ones. So it'll each have a different look.
You've established already, okay, the pine trees are going, right? They're out.
Correct.
Okay. There's a tree in my front yard. I didn't plant. Right. That's the filthiest shit. Dogs and cats don't even shed as much as this thing does. No. Can I say, I want that one out too? Or can I tear it down myself? I'm gonna get an answer on that because this tree is useless.
Well, if I look at High Mesa, if I remember correctly, you guys have about a little over 300 and some trees, about 287 are going to be taken out. So I would assume the tree is in your front yard. Well, most of the trees that are in the grass areas will most likely will be gone. I mean, they're not going to survive the transition. We've talked about that through a number of times without knowing the exact address and such, but I can tell you just 99% of those trees will be gone.
Probably both of them would be out.
Yes. Now, I want to kind of go back. If we have a tree, like a pine tree that's on a corner lot way in the back that's been in the desert for a long time in the rock, we probably will not remove that. So we're going to be very careful on what we remove and don't. And we're trying to be very careful on the trees that we do save, that they have east-west exposures so we can help with the shade in the homes.
My concern is we're moving very fast. And if I recall living through Jimmy Carter, I feel like we're deja vu all over again. And having said that, right, my point is, you know, the cost could drop, you know, I mean, things will change. We will get water. I just, you know, I don't know that, you know, just because there's few landscapers can do this, that we have to buy into it. It's just something to think about.
When you just,
Mike,
hello. When you consider rock as opposed to grass, why wasn't brown, green grass even discussed? Why not Bermuda grass? I'm from here. That's all that ever was planted on the golf courses and the hotels and the homes was brown, green grass. In the winter, you do not water. So you have 4 months of winter and then you start to water minutely first and then more in the summer.
I think back in the early 90s when this place started to boom, the developers, including, you know, California, which a lot of, I'm not going to blame it on one state, but a lot of people moved from those heavy grassed areas. Fescue was the choice at that time. I understand, but 20 years ago, it was from correct. And we're stuck with 20-year-old Del Webb problems with all our trees planted. Right. I'd have to go back to the SNWA because part of the things on Bermuda grass, I don't know if that is acceptable as functional turf, which I assume it is. But once again, I understand we have it on the golf course, but the golf course is a hybrid Bermuda and also some of it's Powana. But what you're asking then is for us to take and remove the back grass and plant it with Bermuda.
That's all.
Yeah, you know, like I'm just saying that could be an added cost because we have to remove all the grass and then put Bermuda in. And Bermuda is something too that it comes stolenized, so it's a plug type. You don't want to buy it in a sod form because it's expensive. It's like artificial grass.
Larry, I don't want to argue with you, but you put rock in, you raise the ground temperature 40 degrees. Now look at your research on that. That is, if you put rock, if you took the back out, you put rock in, you take the trees down, we're not curing anything. In another 10 years, you're going to have to do something else. It's going to be another big project. You're going to backtrack.
I know that the SNWA has been doing this for almost 20 years. I've been in this field 51 years plus. Been through a lot of droughts, people. Mother Nature has always fixed it in every drought I've been into, since Minnesota with the land of 10,000 lakes to Sacramento, California, when the salmon disappeared and never came back. Mother Nature doesn't look, she's fixing this one in a long, long time. We are 100 foot away from Deadpool at Lake Mead. I'm not panicking anyone on it. I'm just saying, I understand it's a lesser of two evils. That's why the SNWA said you have to have a 50% coverage on those rock areas, whether it's plant material or trees and shade. They wanted to make sure that that heat dome was kept in the best possible solution for all of us. And those things are extremely strict in SNWA rules, and we have to abide by those. So,
Larry, wasn't there some part of the plans here, work on me with my memory here, that you were going to put in some kind of a green type ground cover
yeah,
in certain areas where it can be
yes, in the
installed?
villas, there's it's part of the design plan. There is a ground cover grass-like, and I can't say the word correctly, but it's called coropia. And it is a stolenized type hybrid that usually gets in about 300 to 400 foot circles. Now they have to be drip irrigated. I cannot spray that, but that is one of the considerations. We just recently purchased that material so that I can experiment with it to see exactly how it grows. One of the problems we have not looked at, and the developer, we're not too sure about the rabbits yet, because I could put it out there, I could eat it like clover. And the rabbits are a big problem at the villas. 60% of my plant material and grass destruction is rabbits. But yes, we are looking at some type of ground covers that will work. And there's about 6 of them, including one called Silver Spur. I recently just gave a speech to the Southern Nevada Master Gardeners, about 250 people, and we went over those ground covers. So when we look at this project, we're looking at every angle we possibly can to keep the heat dome down, but also give you guys something more natural than just rock.
So Larry, last 2 questions. There's one up there that says, can't we just mulch the trees and use that instead of stone?
Mulch would be probably one of the worst things we could do, because scorpions, insects, ants, bugs, and that brings in other predators, and they get bigger as they look and feed on the feed group. So mulch would be definitely not there.
So we're going to go with this gentleman and then the young lady in the back who hasn't had a chance. Go ahead.
I just have a recommendation. I've done contracting for many, many years. I suggest you extend the bid validity dates immediately, because you're never going to make the original 90 days, and you're going to lose leverage if you go back to them when they're about to expire. So that's just a comment, and I'll pass it on.
Okay, it'll take some time. A decision will be made about when do you think whatever work's going to be done will begin? Is it going to happen at Thanksgiving and Christmas? Are we waiting till the winter months, or do we wait till spring?
So hang on, Wendy was going to jump in. The board's going to deliberate, and then there'll be something on the agenda. So watch for the October 27th agenda. Then if they take action, which could be, hey, we're just going to start collecting assessments and spread it out over a period of time. We're going to collect it sooner and the project's going to begin. It's all going to be dependent on who's awarded the contract and when we get on their schedule. Okay, so we could say that a contract is awarded a week after. It takes a minute to get a contract together, right? So a week or 2 after, then the contractor is going to say, well, we can't start this job until X. And then that's when it would potentially begin. And okay, are you with High Mesa? So this is it. Let's go ahead. We have to start the next meeting, and some of us need to take a restroom break.
I'm one of them. Okay. This is totally off what everybody else has been saying. My backyard is where you guys would gather, Larry. I would see you guys out there. I could hear somewhat what was said. And I heard Larry one time make a comment to the contractor. I'm assuming it's contractors that he was showing it all to so they could bid, making the comment that these people are on fixed incomes. I mean, this board, guys, is not our enemies. They are fighting. I don't do good on a mic. So y'all just need to be understanding that they're doing the best they can for us. and this can't be fun for them. So.
Okay, well, we're ending the meeting. Thank you, High Mesa, for all of your input. If you have additional questions, you can email us.